Brian, well, he's probably more correct than them on some like basic things. Brian said he didn't want to get married. So you don't want to get married. That's gay. You know, I'm making this accusation a lot now.
Why do you keep using that term?
Whoa, you can't say that, or can you? Welcome back to the JP Reacts channel, my beautiful freedom-loving friend, where we like to point out the lies, hypocrisy, and corruption of tyrants and Satan, shine the light of awareness on woke absurdities, and highlight the amazing work of other freedom fighters because truth conquers. So, as you know, there are so many words that you're not allowed to say. Question is, are you obedient to that, or do you say them, or do you make a discernible decision using your own logical, freedom-based, loving mind to decide what you do and don't want to say and what's inappropriate relative to your values? Now, gay is one of those words, like, in a way you have to say it everywhere, every time. LGBTQA plus 2S, because most of that is nothing to do with being gay. And in another way, you're not allowed to say it at all. Michael Knowles, he marches to the beat of his own drum. And he was on recently the Iced Coffee Hour podcast, and he was calling things gay throughout the conversation. And we're going to pick up at a clip where he says that's gay, talking about a producer on a podcast. And the Iced Coffee Hour guys kind of go in on him. Their PC radar went off. They're like, hey, why do you do that? You shouldn't, that's not inclusive of you to say it like that. Why do you do that? And Michael Knowles has amazing logic for why he uses that term, the gay, when he uses it. And it's not a matter of do you agree with him or not. It's just that's his logic. And I like that he's not intimidated out of his logic. So I found it very fascinating. I want to walk through this segment with you. And as we do at the end, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Like, you know, can you say it however you want, or do you not want to? And a lot of times when people who don't march to the PC drum use that term, they're not describing a gay person. Why I'm saying that term, I'm censoring myself. When they say gay, they're not necessarily describing a gay person, nor are they using it to be derogatory towards a gay person. They're using it to kind of deflate something else, which then of course is the argument, well, therefore it's derogatory to a gay person because you're using a word that they identify with. I'll look forward at the end to hearing in the comments what you think about this whole thing. So we're going to pick up with this clip of Michael Knowles from the Daily Wire talking to the Iced Coffee Hour podcast.
But Brian, well, he's probably more correct than them on some like basic things. Brian said he didn't want to get married. So you don't want to get married. That's gay. You know, I'm making this accusation a lot.
Look at these guys. They're stirring. They're like, well, we have to be the PC police here. I don't know that they really care, but they're like, oh, we're on video. We got to like, all right, what are we supposed to say to this? And they give them pushback.
Yeah, why do you keep using that term?
I'm like that guy.
That's a not very inclusive term. You know
that. It's very inclusive. There are a lot of gay guys.
Gay?
Yeah, the term gay is actually inclusive only to gays.
So I'm including them.
Why can't you just say you disagree?
Because I disagree, but specifically I disagree because that view is gay.
Right, but okay, but the problem that I have with calling something...
Why are you gay? Why are you gay? You are gay.
Well,
you are gay. Like that guy on the Ghana.
I have a problem, I feel like, with...
So the only thing funny about this is how uncomfortable these guys are. It's fun.
At least if I'm trying to understand your motive, like your desired outcome of going on these shows and speaking the truth or whatever, your truth, whatever you want to call it, I don't think it's going to yield good benefit or desired results if you say things are gay in a derogatory way. Because it's not like someone maybe who's gay is going to hear that and they're going to be like, oh, this guy, he thinks all gay people are bad. Or,
listen,
you know,
I'm an icon of the gay community. You know,
I
have plenty of friends. Look, I lived in New York. I lived in LA. I went to the gayest university on
what university?
Earth, Yale.
Okay.
So they say 1 in 4, maybe more at Yale, you know.
By the way, keep in mind where they're going. You know, these guys are giving him pushback and Michael Knowles is being a little bit funny, but where he's going eventually by the end of our clip, there are very principled reasons for why Michael Knowles refuses to not acquiesce using the word gay the way he wants to. And it's based on principles that really got me thinking that are important. So stay tuned.
I have a disproportionate number of homosexually identifying friends and people with variously eccentric views. But, you know, my view is that we shouldn't recommend LGBT activism. I think that's not a good thing to
Right, but it's not recommending that. It's just, like I said, if your desired result is to hopefully find a middle ground where you can both agree on something,
No,
or
my desired result is to arrive at the truth.
Now that is an important statement. Iced coffee hour guys, I don't think they're coming from principles here. My read is they're coming from fear. Like, dude, this guy just said gay on our show. Our audience is seeing this. We're afraid what they might think, so we've got to give them pushback. So I think they're coming from fear on this. Michael Knowles is coming from principle, and I love what his important thing is here. Because I got, well, aren't we supposed to, if you're trying to come to a middle ground, Michael Knowles is, I'm not trying to come to a middle ground. I'm trying to come to truth. If truth happens to be in the middle ground, then so be it. But I love how he's got his eye on the ball. Like, I'm trying to arrive at truth. I'm not trying to please people in the middle ground. JP took note on that.
But don't you
is it
want
for
people-
yourself or to help other people arrive at the truth?
For everybody.
But if you're trying to help other people arrive at the truth, calling something gay in a bad way in front of another gay person, I'm not
I think
even
it's
saying
really good. I think it's really good to do because
I think people, they recoil when you attack at like
maybe
their
you recoil. I don't think a lot of other people.
I think a lot.
He's definitely recoiling.
I would think a lot of
I
people.
think a lot of people grew up on the playground saying, "Hey, that shirt's really gay," ha ha ha, and then everybody laughs.
I know I did when I was a kid and didn't know what gay meant. We'll get back to the video in just a sec, but first, I work hard and I've got my fair share of stresses, but I want to feel good and rebound from what life throws at me. And I'm happy to say that an absolute gem that I've found that helps me feel at my best no matter what life throws at me is Bond Charge's red light therapy products. You can see me in front of the Supermax red light panel here. No one does red light therapy devices or makes them more affordable than Bond Charge, a holistic wellness company that offers a huge range of evidence-based products to help you optimize your life in every way. I notice I get elevated energy, reduced stress, and also a reduction of aches and pains. I no longer have to just hope that I feel good for the day, because Bond Charge helps me take control. Red light therapy helps with a host of other things, like sleep, wrinkles, sore muscles, and arthritis, amongst others. In fact, red light's anti-aging effects on the face are so profound, I'm now using Bond Charge's red light face mask as well, because I just turned 43 and want to turn back the clock a bit. To upgrade how you feel and function, bring a little red light therapy into your life, go to bondcharge.com/JPReacts and use a discount code JPReacts for 15% off. That's bondcharge.com/JPReacts. Back to the video.
Language until 5 minutes ago, and in no way is it mocking or attacking any people who have kind of eccentric sexual desires or anything like that.
But
I think it's just kind of gay.
But even if it
I
alienates,
think this whole conversation.
But imagine it alienates 1 or 2% of the audience.
Did you catch that? He's like, I think this whole conversation's kind of gay.
Is that worth it?
In this case, I'm using it in a very specific way and intentionally, much as I would use the word eradicate at my CPAC speech with regard to transgender ideology.
So it's
I'm using it.
attention.
No. That's what the liberals accused me of, but that's because they have difficulty understanding words. The reason I use the word eradicate there is because I specifically was referring to uprooting an entire ideology, root and branch. And the reason I use gay specifically in this case is one, because it's kind of funny and we've all used it, even though we all politically correctly now pretend that we don't. We're all clutching our pearls. The other thing, we all pretend that the homosexuals are offended by it. They're not. Homosexuals are outrageous people a lot of the time, and they're men a lot of the time, and they're tough guys. It's like macho man in the Village People. The reason I'm using it specifically here is because gay refers to an entire view of the sexual ethic, a view of the sexual ethic that views men and women as indiscernible and substitutable for one another, and a view of the sexual ethic that is ultimately sterile, that separates means from ends. So I'm doing that very intentionally.
You're
I'm doing
using
it
the esoteric way, right?
I don't think that's so esoteric. I think it's playing on the proper meaning of the word, and it's showing people the issue from a perspective that has been kept from them.
But when you just say the word gay, without any context behind it, people are not going to put that meaning the way that you meant it. They're not going to do all the background thinking of, oh, he means it like this, and if you extrapolate to this.
But when I use a word that everyone used until 5 minutes ago, that now the politically correct censors won't let us use, when I use that word, what I am saying is I will not ascribe to your left-wing censorship regime.
Now that is an important point that I love. Again, wherever you stand on using the word gay or not, this is an important point. If you choose not to use that word, only because of the political correct, lines, then you're ascribing to a left-wing censorship model. You're ascribing to censorship, the censorship of leftists, and you are doing the censorship. Now, if you have other reasons that actually come from you, not just like, oh, there's censorship here, let me mistake those thoughts in my head as my own thinking, not that. But if you have other reasons for not saying the word gay, then cool. Like, you're not coming from the left-wing censorship, you're not strengthening it. Otherwise, I think a lot of people are strengthening the left-wing censorship by censoring themselves and therefore setting that example, and they don't know it.
And you're right. It might put some people off. It'll at least raise their eyebrows.
Usually white, straight women that are undesirable will most get offended by the word gay, and any other word for that matter. It'll put them off.
They're not offended. I don't think many people are actually offended by it, but it'll raise their eyebrows at least at first. But the consequence of that will be that it will start to crack away at the left-wing censorship regime, which uses a cycle of euphemisms to constantly change the words that we're allowed to use for anything.
I would disagree. I think it would cause a lot of people to check out immediately. They would hear you saying something like this and immediately think, oh, it's one of these guys. Anything he says
my speech has a lot of views on it.
Anything you say after that, then you're going to tune out or not take as seriously as saying, I disagree with the concept of marriage because of this. To me, that sounds a lot more eloquent and a lot more sophisticated than saying, oh,
and understanding, which is, I feel like, the number one thing that you need to be if you're trying to persuade other people.
I guess my evidence to the contrary is I've given many long lectures using very dry language on all of these questions. You've never seen any of them, and none of those clips have ever gone viral.
So then
and you have a conversion rate.
It's
on those.
Not merely for attention. It's so that your
message
important
gets heard.
point is heard by people in a precise and just way.
But then I think it's also, do you want your message to be heard, or do you want it to impact the people in a positive way that you would like to get your message across? Because getting attention and just saying crazy stuff will get crazy attention.
I don't think
online.
I'm saying any crazy stuff. I think I'm saying very reasonable, true stuff.
But just taking to the extreme and saying, I'm going to say something that'll get attention, that will do well on social media, versus I'm going to say something, it's not going to get as much attention, but the people who watch it will take my ideas into consideration. It'll make more of an impact than saying something.
I think
saying what you mean without self-censoring and without trying to be hurtful to other people is the best way to express yourself. That's just my thinking.
Dominated the national discourse for at least a week after I gave it. And it wasn't exclusively my CPAC speech. It was Matt Walsh's What is a Woman movie. It was the work of TERF radical feminists but I'm really not taking credit for all of this. But I do think that my speech at CPAC and the positive way that it was received by the American right and a lot of the American middle, and the screeching, crazy reaction that came from the left and the lies that came from the establishment media helped to expand the window of discourse and helped to move that issue more in our direction. And it's led to laws that have been proscribing the transgender ideology in public life. So I think it was very persuasive, and it did get people's attention. It did. I actually didn't intend for it to get that much attention, but it did. And I think that's a good thing. And yes, the libs are going to accuse me of all sorts of things, genocide or whatever, but it's ridiculous, and reasonable people know that's ridiculous. Just as when I say that, a guy saying that my wife gets to run the whole show at home and I don't have a say, so that's kind of gay, man. I don't think that homosexuals at home are saying that awful, terrible man, he wants to throw me off a roof like the Taliban. No, they're saying, okay, he's using a word that we don't use as much in the last 5 years, but a lot of people have used for a long time. And he's using it in a derogatory way because he's criticizing an action of a husband with his wife. And he's using it in a precise way because he's saying that that view of sexual relations is essentially the same view as the gay view, which is that men and women are basically the same.
I don't know about that. I've never heard a gay person, I'm not talking about like trans, like we don't know what a woman is, but an actual gay person suggests that men and women are essentially the same, maybe in like roles. I question that.
It operates on a lot of levels, and the proof of the pudding is in the tasting. I'm happy to give a really dry academic lecture, but that message is not going to penetrate. To some people it will. I'll give it in I'm giving a lecture on Dante this coming summer. Can't wait to do it. It's going to be extremely academic, very dry. A lot of people will consider it boring, probably. The people in the room will love it.
I tend to believe that you could spice up your message without alienating even 1 or 2% of your audience.
I have a different opinion. If you aim to offend no one, you will be very boring. You will use a lot of words to say very little. Yeah, going on edge, being afraid to offend people, it just vanillas everything. Now, for balance, I don't have the belief that you should go out and deliberately try to offend people in the sense of like trying to hurt people, bully them with your words. I don't think that's at all cool whatsoever. But being aligned with your truth, what you want to say, how you want to say it without a care in the world, who gets offended, that's a very effective way to come across. And I would dare say it's a more entertaining way because it's a more authentic way.
Whatever that may be, without using...
What do you mean by alienate?
I think when you say the term, that's gay. I think the people who would be really receptive to you and want to hear what you have to say might tune you out at that point.
Why? Because they think that I disapprove of the sexual revolution?
I think that you would use terms that maybe are not...
it's just an aggressive term.
Such an aggressive term. Says a guy rubbing his neck with his finger.
When did it become an aggressive term?
It doesn't matter how you're transmitting it.
No,
right?
I'm just asking when it became an aggressive term.
I'm saying that's not even a part of this discussion. I'm saying it matters how it's received.
Well, all right, but I got to get an answer to this question. You're saying it's an aggressive term. That's very shocking for me to hear. For my whole life, that wasn't an aggressive term.
Right, but
so
now it is.
When did it become an aggressive term?
Probably in the last couple of years.
Exactly. So what are we going to do? Are we going to accept the radical redefinition of basic words by the left and just play along with their words? And what, pretty soon I'm going to start calling Bruce Jenner she or Caitlyn. And then I've accepted transgenderism. Because here's the point. When you use the language framed by your ideological adversaries, you accept their whole premise. When you start talking about the right to marriage equality rather than the meaning of marriage, there's no debate to be had. You've already accepted that two men can marry one another just as a man and a woman can marry one another. You've already accepted that. You're just asking who has the right to do it. You've lost the debate. The moment that you call Bruce Jenner Caitlyn, that's a girl's name, or if you call Bruce Jenner she, especially, you've accepted the premise of transgenderism. And you're right. If I call Bruce Jenner he, people are going to recoil at that. I'm going to alienate 1% of the audience by saying that.
Listen up. Important point.
I guess I'll alienate some radicals, but I will show the vast majority of the audience the reality as I see it, which I think is...
So showing the audience the reality as I see it, rather than subscribing to leftist censorship. You can say this, you can't say that. I like that point.
You're optimizing for impact. You think that your route would be more impactful than maybe the other
You're
route.
giving me way too much credit. You're making me out to be some big strategist calculator of every piece of rhetoric I use. It's not that complex. I just endeavor to tell the truth. I endeavor to speak the truth, and I endeavor to speak the truth in really plain terms. I'm with George Orwell on this. Politics in the English language. We should use simple terms. We should use Saxon words over Latinate words when we can. We should use terms that are vivid, and I guess we call that aggressive, but George Orwell would say it's plain. It's clear. It presents to people reality, because if we don't use that, if we just use the euphemisms and the mealy-mouthed politically correct words, then people are going to continue to see a fantasy. You know, if we talk about an illegal alien, then we know that's the kind of person who has no right to be in the country. If we talk about an undocumented future American dreamer, well, that paints a picture for you, whether you're aware of it or not, of someone who has absolutely every right to be in the country, probably more than you do. If we talk about she, the trans woman, well, she has every right to go into that bathroom. She's a she. If we say it's a he, and he's a dude, and he's wearing a dress, and that man has no right to go into the bathroom. The clarity here in language, you might call it aggressive. I think it's the only option.
I love that. You might call it aggressive. Michael Knowles says it's the only way because he's after truth. So let me know what you think in the comments below about Michael Knowles' rationalization for why he refuses to acquiesce using terms like gay that he naturally wants to use. I found his explanation very fascinating to learn that, like, he's not just rebelling against woke PC culture. He is doing that, but he's also got very important reasons why these words need to be said, because he wants to say them, because he stands for truth, rather than 1984ing away words, that then 1984 away meaning, that then 1984 away truth. such a big fog between us and truth because we've acquiesced to all these iterations of PC language that always has their goalposts moving further and further, and that's a lot of dense fog between us and truth. So, I love Michael Knowles' point of view. Let me know what you think in the comments, and thank you, my beautiful freedom-loving friend, for watching this video. I'll look forward to seeing you on our next one, and until then, do stay free and speak your mind.